This is Tips and Tricks. My name is Season Summers, and today we're going to tackle Ferling Etude number 5, an important topic, phrasing. All right, so basically how to say, or in this case, play, what you mean. So I wanted to start with what is phrasing, because I hear that word thrown around a lot, but I think it's one of those words that maybe a lot of people don't realize. They don't actually know how to define that. So full disclosure, we're going to keep it really simple because this is a short video. So if you're looking for more in-depth information, right, hit the internet, okay, and look this stuff up. Look up phrases and phrasing, and you can learn a lot more on there, but I'm going to keep it really simple for today. Okay, so let's start with what is a phrase. Now, in Western music, specifically classical music, is built off the concept of an 8-measure phrase. So basically 8 measures is like a sentence. You can think of it like that. And then we can break it down into 4 plus 4. So you could think of the first 4 measures like a question and the second 4 as the answer to that question, right? 4 plus 4. And we can keep breaking it down into smaller pieces. So that brings me to my next point, smaller note groupings. So then if we have 4 plus 4, we could then break the 4 in half and do a 2 plus 2. And we could even break down that farther and make it, just even smaller note groupings. So I want to explain that concept because I think that's a really helpful tool for practicing. The brain loves for us to break new complicated or unfamiliar things down into smaller, much more manageable pieces of information. And if you keep breaking it down, eventually you'll reach a level where you go, I can do this. So don't feel overwhelmed. If you feel overwhelmed, just break it down to the next level. If you still feel overwhelmed, do less, right? Less. We're cutting it down to make it manageable for you. So we're talking to all levels right now. Okay. And then once we have that figured out, then the next thing is the phrasing. Phrasing you could think of as punctuation. Okay, so to prove the importance of punctuation, what I would suggest you do is read a paragraph or a couple of sentences of something you have nearby and ignore the punctuation. It'll be really hard. But what's going to happen is you're going to end up reading like this. It's going to go on and on and on and on, and it's not going to make any sense because we never stop and our voice just stays the same all the way throughout, right? You get the idea. So the punctuation is really important to that. Another way maybe to think of that is when you talk, you pause in logical places, your voice pitch changes up and down. You just do that instinctually, and that's punctuating. Guess what, guys? That's phrasing. You're phrasing what you're saying. So let's see if we can now implement that with your oboe into your audition music. Okay, so first things first. This is an amazing example that Ferling made just for us to understand the 8-measure phrase. I mean, it's just a prime example. We've got 40 measures, so that means we've got 5 phrases, right? And I've marked them, I've color-coded them with brackets. So just take a peek at the top. The blue phrase measures 1 through 8. Then we have the pink phrase 9 through the end of 16. Then like an orange phrase, 17 to 24. And this one, I would say, go ahead and play the downbeat of 25. That note, that downbeat of 25 is the end of the previous phrase, but it's also the beginning of this gold phrase. So we call that an ellipses. The note has like a double duty, right? It's the end of one and the beginning of other. So go ahead and play that note at the end. And then 25 through the first note of 32, 8 measures, and then 33 to the end, plus these pickup notes. These notes at the end of 32 are functioning as pickup notes to the end. So you can already break your music down like that, and it's already much more manageable if you're just dealing with one of those at a time. But let's break it down even farther. All right, so we're going to just deal with the first phrase today, the first 8 measures. Now remember I said 4 plus 4, and then I went further and said 2 plus 2 and 2 plus 2. That's where we are right now. I've color-coded the 2s. So yellow, blue, pink, and green is 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 8. I know, we don't like math, I'm sorry. Okay, so now, why am I doing that? In order to be able to hear that I've broken it down into those smaller chunks, I have to assign it a shape. And so what we're talking about with shape is crescendo and decrescendo. We need to have a crescendo or a decrescendo that encompasses every single note throughout the entire etude. Now, the purpose for that is that we want the energy going up and down all the time, fluctuating. Sometimes it's smooth, sometimes it hills, sometimes it's peaks and mountains, but it's always changing. And if it's not, it's just going to sound kind of monotone and boring. And also it's harder for the audience to hear where the phrases are. So then it starts to get that kind of monotone, non-punctuation type of sound to it. Okay. Now, how do we do that on the oboe? Air, right? So the air is going to speed up or increase pressure, if you want to think of it that way, for the crescendo, which gives the illusion of moving towards the camera. And then if I let my air relax, it's going to give the illusion of coming away or relaxing the energy. And that's the decrescendo. So we're going to make use of those today. I'm not really going to talk about volume levels, but I just want to introduce that idea of the air creating the shape. So let's look at the gold box, because this will make more sense once we do one together. So if we look up here at the gold box, my copy of the Ferling looks different than this. My copy has a crescendo going all the way from the first note straight through to the downbeat of 3. So that would be one option where we would do one long crescendo. But this copy that I'm using provides us with another option on the page, right? It's showing us like, hey, what if we just crescendoed to measure 2 instead? Now, what do we do after we crescendo? We decrescendo, right? So if we crescendo to the downbeat of 2, then we could decrescendo to the downbeat of 3. So that just offers another shape. Neither is right or wrong, right? They're just different. So this is all subjective, and there's always a million different ways that you can do phrasing. So I'm going to play both ways. And I want you to listen to the difference. And you might naturally gravitate to one over the other, which would be great, because then that'll help you decide what to do. But you might also like both. I certainly do. So let's do option 1, which is one long crescendo. Okay, so this is what that sounds like. So I made it all the way through. My air was constantly increasing all the way through to the downbeat of 3. Now I'm going to do option 2, which is crescendo to the B here, and then relax. Okay? So this is going to give you a different sound. Here's option 2. I think they both sound really nice, but they're just different, right? So you can come up with option 3 and 4 and 5 and great, right? Whatever you want, but we need to have a plan. And we need to know, is this note that I'm playing, and this is true for every note, is it part of a crescendo? Is it part of a decrescendo? Now what we just did, you could also do again in 5 and 6. We could do one long crescendo all the way to the downbeat of 7. Or we could crescendo just to the downbeat of 6, come away on the D, and then crescendo again on these 2 pickup notes to launch into the B. Which one's better? I don't know. I think that depends on the person, right? So you have artistic license to pick what you want. You are in charge of this, right? So my point is, every single note should be a part of a crescendo or a decrescendo, and you need to make these decisions for all of the notes all the way through. So that's your first priority, is to start little by little making your way through and assigning them as part of a crescendo or a decrescendo. All right, so tricks for today. Stay curious, my friends, right? There's no right, there's no wrong, there's just boring if you do nothing. So we don't want to do that. Do something, try it. And if it sounds silly when you try it, laugh, right? But some of the craziest things I think about phrasing, I played them on my oboe, and I actually really love them. And I'm like, oh, that's good. I didn't think it would be, but it is. And so that brings me to point number 2. Literally, just try everything, right? Play it. Practice room is a safe space for you to try things. So just try it and see what you think. And then after you've tried everything, make a decision. This is super important. I can't tell you how often I procrastinate making decisions, and it's not a good use of time. I make myself make a decision knowing that I can always change my mind later, right? So If you have two options that you really love, just pick one so that you're constantly practicing with phrasing. And then later, if you change your mind, fine, change it. And then once you've made a decision, mark it on your part. So I would love for all of you guys to have a series of crescendos and decrescendos that encompass every single note all the way through the entire etude. If you don't like drawing on your music, right, you like a clean copy, I totally get it. Just draw very lightly with your pencil, and that way then when it becomes kind of ingrained in you to do it without needing to see it, you can erase it and it'll be clean again, right? Now, I don't want to leave you without telling you how to practice this. So this is my best tip. Practice with your air only. You don't need to read, right? You just blow air and you finger, and you can even articulate, okay? And if you can hear the clear crescendo and decrescendo or whatever it is that you've planned, if you can hear it with your air, when you put your oboe up to your face, you will hear it on your oboe. That is the best way. But most of the time I ask people to do this and I hear, right? No shape, okay? So just know that you can check yourself that way. All right, guys, if you have any other ideas of things that would be really helpful to you, things that maybe helped you understand phrasing or practice phrasing, if you have questions, things that were unclear, you can leave all of that in the comments and I'll get back to you. That would be really helpful. But that brings us to the end of today's video. So subscribe, and if you would like to request a topic, you can let me know and I'll do my best to fit that into the schedule I've created. Until next Friday, you guys have a great weekend, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.